Hello. If you're looking to learn about some of the most important elements to make a great website, you've come to the right place. In this overview, we're going to cover a bunch of these most important areas, and then of course in additional videos we'll go into greater depth. Join us, let's have a look. So, jumping into our website's overview, one of the first questions that comes up is, what type of site do you actually need? Now, first off, you've probably heard the term brochure website used in a somewhat negative connotation before. That said, if you're not doing active marketing online, but you're just using your site to, when somebody's checking you out, when they've been referred to you, or if you've met someone through networking and they're just kind of looking to make sure that you're legitimate before getting in touch, a brochure site might be just fine. And it'll basically have a little bit about you and your contact info. It should look professional, absolutely, but not everybody needs a full-blown 20-page website or anything like that. Next step up is to build a persuasive site, and that'll show off the benefits of working with you. And the idea of a persuasive site is that it can generate interest and inquiries even from people that have never heard of you. So you'll share some of the great things you do, you'll share why you're a credible authority, all that sort of stuff, and ideally you will be able to persuade somebody that happens to land on your site that doesn't know you that you're a good person to do business with. At a next higher level for a service business website, a thought leadership website is something that offers content of interest to your audience, and it really positions you and your company as the most knowledgeable and top choice for the services you offer. This is also the best sort of site to go after if you're gonna strive to do well in search engine optimization. And you don't have to go nuts with it, but there are definitely some guidelines about how you want to do a thought leadership site that we'll cover in more in-depth videos. So again, the brochure website, critical elements include it's fast loading, good performance, looks well branded and professional, and it's an experience that's straightforward and easy to navigate. As well, there should be very clear and obvious ways to get in touch. The persuasive website, basically, before building this site, you'll need to know keen insights on your customer needs and challenges so you can address them on the website. You'll want benefit-driven languages that basically highlight how you address those needs and challenges. And then some clear and obvious calls to action, basically inviting people to take the logical next steps for wherever they're at on your website. And then lastly, we talk about credibility indicators. That basically might be, you might show some of your reviews, you might have testimonials on your website, you might have case studies from past clients, you might list some professional organizations or affiliations or certifications you have. All of those go to build credibility for your site, and they really help at this level if somebody doesn't already know you. Now, a thought leadership website, this does take some work and ongoing effort. You need to have ongoing content being created. That said, it can be really well worth the effort. What I would caution you is you kind of do need to decide that you're going to see it through. As you might have guessed, the What Works website, our company website, is an example of a thought leadership website. We're going to some really extreme lengths to share valuable information and to show that we're a credible company that people want to do business with. Hopefully it's working. But yeah, you kind of can't really go halfway and expect much from it. But we'll talk more about that in our in-depth, some more in-depth videos, and especially around the thought marketing theme. So some insider tips from somebody who's been around the block, as they say. Don't be overly ambitious to start. Something super simple that's done well is way better than an overly ambitious website that's not well put together. Another true fact is that really straightforward websites actually convert visitors better, and they're better for SEO, and they cost less. They're easier to build. So interestingly, the sites that Google and visitors like are the simplest, most manageable ones to build, but yet folks sometimes go nuts and get way too ambitious, much more than they need to. Also, lastly, don't reinvent the wheel. There are some standard layout and navigation practices with websites that, as they call them, best practices, and they're best practices for a reason. People are used to them. For instance, think about how frustrated you'd be if you got a book and the table of contents wasn't at the front but was stuck somewhere in the middle, or the index was somewhere else, or a note was written back to front or something. People are trained to digest websites in a certain manner. There may be a super creative reason why you want to vary from that, and absolutely go for it if you're confident. But for a vast majority of us, simple navigation and simple websites are absolutely the best way to go. So the elements of your website, at least most of the most important elements, include branding, design, writing, visitors and conversion, calls to action, landing pages, and then again that navigation and site structure that we're talking about. So we go deeper into all these, but just to share some quick thoughts. First off, for the branding and design, how your site looks sets expectations about your level of service, how professional you are, and what your pricing is going to look like. True fact, again, if somebody comes to your site and they're blown away by how professional it looks, they're actually going to be comfortable with paying more than if they come to your site and it's kind of cobbled together and it doesn't look so professional. So again, even if you're not doing aggressive outbound marketing or anything like that, absolutely need to make it look great. And this all happens in a fraction of a second. Somebody doesn't stop and think about whether your site is professional or not. They just immediately intuit that when they land there. Of course, branding goes much deeper than that, but at a minimum, you want your look and feel to reflect that level of professionalism. And also, the more precise your industry, the more professional and meticulous you should be. So if you're a dentist or somebody that does procedures on people, for instance, if you have mistakes on your website, that really doesn't bode well. If you have a bit of more creative enterprise, you can get away with a bit more, but again, everybody should be professional. And again, the more meticulous your industry, the more meticulous your site better be. So looking to writing, it's an interesting area, and not all of us are writers. So if you're just not into it, you'll want to get some help with that. But that said, you truly don't need to be an expert writer to have a great website. The absolute most important thing is actually understanding your customers and then writing about things from their perspective, which actually is very hard for us when we've spent a lot of time in our business, but that is bar none the absolute most important thing about the writing. You identify the important problems you can solve for your clients or the exciting opportunities you can create. You make the writing all about that, and you focus on the benefits, not the features. And by that, you focus on what they get out of it. So an example on our website is talking about engaging our marketing services to win more clients. That's a benefit. Features would be talking about, oh, we're a Google Premier Partner Agency, we're great at this, we've got 15 years experience. All those things are true, and those are good backup, but those are features of working with us. They're not benefits of our service. So absolutely focus on the benefits. I can't say that strongly enough. Visitors and conversion. So first off, conversion is an industry term, and we like our industry terms in digital marketing. We've got a million of them. Basically, it means getting a visitor from one step in your process to the next. And these things could include, for instance, something as simple as going from the homepage to go read about you in your services pages. A conversion would be submitting the form on your contact page. A different conversion might be booking an appointment. Essentially, again, it's anything that gets somebody from one step in your process to that next step in your process. And most importantly, measuring your most important conversions and then learning how to get more visitors to convert is critically important. And it's really the highest leverage thing you can do, because it makes everything else work better. So definitely spend some time thinking about that. Calls to action. Again, we've got our industry language that we go on about, but this is a really important one. A call to action is basically an invitation to take the next step. And so deciding what that next step is and then presenting it well is critically important. And the call to action is usually different on most every page. So for instance, if you're on the home page, the most important call to action is probably to learn more. There can be more direct ones, but that's probably a most important one. Whereas if you're on a booking page, of course, the most important call to action is to book now. Some folks are hesitant to be too forward about it, but you really want to make it obvious and clear, and your call to action should be relevant to the page that someone's on, relevant to what the visitor wants to do, not just what you want to do, but what they might actually want to do themselves at that point. And it should also be easy to complete. Landing pages. We won't get too deep into these. We will do a more in-depth video on it, but essentially if you're doing advertising, you might want to consider dedicated landing pages. And essentially these are separate pages that cover just the topic that you're advertising on. They're usually on your website, but they're usually not linked to on your website, so somebody won't randomly find them. And in fact, we usually turn them off from the search engine so that they can't be found in search. And a reason for that is you'll have you might have multiple similar ones for different ads, but essentially they work so well because they remove all extraneous information except what somebody was searching for, or except what you were advertising to somebody when they clicked on the ad. And then so they're just so ridiculously relevant, and then you remove all the other navigation options as well. So big companies do them pretty much always if they're in competitive marketplaces. Another benefit is you can easily A/B test or compare different versions of these landing pages one against the other to learn about what drives people to convert and to sign up. That said, for a typical smaller service business, these may or may not be relevant. Unless you're doing a lot of advertising, you probably want to send somebody directly to a specific service page for whichever service you're advertising. And you want to have that page optimized, but you may not need to go all the way into landing pages. So for navigation and site structure, essentially how you set up your menu, how people travel through the website. Again, as I said before, visitors and Google both prefer super simple sites. You want to avoid anything overly complex, and you want to make sure everything can easily be found. And basically, if something's not important, just leave it out. Another important note, and again, we get into much greater detail on this in the in-depth videos, but for your services section, absolutely consider a services summary page and then a complementary detail page for each individual service. Google does a much better job finding your services if they are on individual pages for each specific service. And those also, again, my convert term, those pages also convert better if somebody's looking for that specific service. Funny note, but that the screenshot that's pasted onto this slide is actually our navigation structure for the Academy. There's a whole lot of pages on there, but actually there's only a few channels, and it's actually quite streamlined and simply structured. That's it for our website overview. Hopefully that was helpful. Look forward to hosting you on our more in-depth videos. Thanks very much.